You're listening to the First Fight Podcast, home of the people and stories behind the fight. I'm Jennifer Anderson, the host and creator. My goal is to give you a peek into the remarkable world of fighting and create a platform for fighters to tell their stories. In each episode of this series, a different fighter shares a transformative story of their first time. Welcome back, everyone. We had a little hiatus, but we are back to finish out 2021 strong with some interesting interviews. On today's episode, which happens to be our 40th official episode, I'll be talking to Frank Wells. Frank is a Muay Thai standout who is transitioning back over to MMA professionally and has a very bright future in that sport. However, he shares his first fight story, the fight that wasn't, and what it was like when his first fight actually happened. We talk about how COVID has impacted his career, the state of the MMA landscape, self-promotion, and we talk about what he sees for himself in the future in the next few years. We had a great talk with Frank. I hope you guys enjoy. Thanks again, Frank, for coming on. We're going to make this work this time.
Yes.
We had some sound issues the first time we did this, but I'm happy to have you back. You are actually the 40th episode, official episode.
Boom. Let's go.
So, I appreciate you coming on, and you're my fellow kind of striking nerd that I like to, or used to like to geek out with you about different fights and Muay Thai specifically usually, but we're big into Muay Thai and you're venturing into MMA now, but tell me how you got your start competing and fighting.
I actually started off doing MMA. It was kind of like a weird thing. I always was interested in it from when I was a little kid. I did karate and whatnot, and I think I stopped when I was 9 or 10. And then when I was 15, my old karate instructor was like, I'm doing this new program. It's jiu-jitsu and it's Muay Thai, fused together. And that's what the UFC is doing, yada, yada. And that's probably 14, 15 is when I just started getting into the UFC and thought it was awesome. Pretty much anybody, I feel that watches it. So I decided to go take the classes, and it really wasn't that at all. It was Israeli street defense against knives and guns and whatnot. So it wasn't what I signed up for, but it got me in the gym, and I was actually there for a couple of years. I couldn't throw strikes that well, but I could smack a rubber knife out of your hand super good. So I was doing that. I took a couple fights while I was under them. The first fight was interesting because of the first fight experience I had was I didn't really get to fight. I had an opponent. I got all the jitters, I remember that one. The very first one was the whole week I barely slept. It was I was just nervous. I was crapping my pants the whole week, and especially the night before was I didn't know what to do with myself. I was just up all night because I just couldn't deal with it. It was the first time I really competed in any sort of combat sport in my life, so I was just just didn't know how to deal with it. And I think I had only taken it on a couple weeks notice because I was 18 and stupid. So I was cool, let's go. And I get there, I weigh in, and then, for Jersey amateurs, you weigh in the same day as you fight. So the fights are at 7, you weigh in at 3 or 4 o'clock. So it's only a couple hours before we're supposed to fight. They call me to the weigh-in. I do it. They call my opponent, and he's not there, just a ghost. So I look online to try to find his social media profiles, and I guess he had a scuff with the promoter who told him he would pay for his hotel, and then when he got there, he's well, you'll pay for it and I'll reimburse you, and kind of just made the kid feel sketchy. So he left, and I didn't know. So the first time I was actually supposed to fight, I didn't fight at all. So that was kind of anticlimactic. But I had tried to like stack a couple up. So I think I had one lined up for like 3 weeks later. which was also like kind of a shit show. But at least I got to fight. So where I actually first fought was at the Golden Nugget in Atlantic City for Asylum Fight League. And I'm not even sure they're doing fights anymore, but they were pretty good then. They were in like their 40 or 50th show when I was on it. And so I get there. I'm supposed to fight some kid. He's like 6 feet tall. He kind of likes to strike. So I'm like, sweet, I like to strike. Even though at the time I didn't know that I couldn't really, but I at least was confident that I could. So I get there, same thing. I weigh in and I just like run off to start. I remember this. I ran off and ate like bagels after I weighed in. Like I was like, oh, carbs for fighting. Cause yeah. And I was like, whatever. But I ran into the other room and ate my bagels. So we're just kind of hanging out. And like an hour or so later, this kid who's like 5'6" walks up to me. He's like, are you Frank Wells? I was like, yeah. He's like, oh, I'm OC. We're going to fight now because both of our opponents miss weight. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, that's what they told me. I was like, okay. And I go to the commission and they're like, yeah, your guy missed weight by like 7 pounds. So we couldn't even give you the option to still take the fight because he was outside of like the range or whatever. And the same thing happened to this kid. So since you guys both made weight, we're just going to have you fight. So like, okay, that's fine. So kind of a weird thing, like 6 foot striker to like 5'6" wrestler, like a weird whatever, but still went out and fought. So I had lost that fight, but it was a very interesting experience, a very fun experience. Where again, it's just like you look back on it now, it's like necessary. It's just like you're just getting your feet wet and figuring things out. But fortunately, because he was a wrestler, even though I wasn't very good, I didn't get hurt at all. You
lost a decision?
Correct. Yeah. Still haven't been finished. Cheers to that. But I lost a decision. I just like was swinging punches and kicks as hard as I could with really no technique. And he was a decent wrestler. I think he was a D2 wrestler. So if I got too aggressive, he just level changed and I ran myself onto him. So he barely had to actually shoot. But yeah, that was pretty much the tale of it. I was swinging at him. I think I hurt him a couple times, but he took me down a couple times and he just held me down for a bit, especially
in ground and pound, right?
Correct. That's what I was going to say. There's like, you can only punch to the body. So it's like, there's literally like no danger of being hurt, even if you're getting taken down constantly.
Yeah. After that first fight, losing, and that I always like seeing how many people won or lost their first fight, and most people won it that are still doing it. It's kind of hard to mentally keep going. After that first fight and that loss, were you like disheartened? Did you really still want to do that on a serious level, or were you kind of second guessing yourself?
No, I was still like super pumped about it. Again, I never really competed very much at all up until that point in my life, other than like I played baseball, but like I didn't have a one-on-one like combat thing. So I was just like so pumped to do it. And I knew that I had hurt the kid, and I know this now looking back, but you don't realize in the moment, like everybody that you care about tells you did great, even if you sucked. But I didn't know that. So they all told me I did great. So I was like, cool, I did great. I did what I could. I feel like I hurt the kid. I like, whatever. I had a good time. So I was like, yeah, let's do it again. And very quick turnaround also from my first fight. Because I remember Frankie Perez was there for whatever reason. I maybe like somebody he knew was fighting. I don't know. I'd have to ask him if he even remembered. And he was like, oh, you look good, kid. I got a spot at my show in 2 weeks if you want it. I was like, yeah. I didn't even talk to my coaches. They were like, I had to like convince them to come because they weren't even available. But I was like, yeah, totally. Let's do it. And flipped around quick on that as well.
And did you know from the start that it's what you wanted to kind of do with your life, pursue seriously?
Yeah, I feel like well, again, I feel like, again, now looking back and being experienced, it's like so many people before they even fight are so sure that that's what they want to do. So like when I was in high school, I was talking about it, like
really?
that I wanted to do it, that I was like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, even though, again, I was terrible and I had all this confidence. But it was like, it just seemed like such a fun thing to do and just so cool to me and so interesting that I was like 100% in on it before I was at any sort of decent skill level.
Now you've gone on to have a lot of success in Muay Thai, and you're getting started in MMA now, transitioning, I would say. Are you planning on doing more Muay Thai, or are you just sticking with MMA?
I would definitely be down to do Muay Thai in the future, but for a little while now, it's going to be MMA. Again, I'm like mostly doing like CFFC, and I have like a 4-fight deal with them that I'm halfway through. Yeah, and I would like to like extend that when this is over and do another do another contract with them. And it's just like I did Muay Thai for like 5-6 years straight without doing any sort of grappling. So I feel like just this past year and a half has just been me like trying to close that gap and level my jiu-jitsu up, that I know for sure if I took a Muay Thai fight, I wouldn't be doing any jiu-jitsu. So it'd be like, if I'm spending energy training, it's going to be energy getting better in Muay Thai, So it's like, while I still have this big gap to come up, I'm going to probably stick with MMA for now. And then maybe when it's like, a couple of years down the line, jump back and do some Muay Thai.
So throughout all your experience fighting, is there any moments that stand out to you that taught yourself something about yourself, good or bad?
I think maybe not necessarily the fights themselves, but just like the training and preparing for them, I feel is like most of the time the toughest part. Because like for me, I've really only been hurt in like 2 fights where I had to like dig through. And yeah, I mean, I definitely found out that I could. But most of the time, fights being hard for me has just been like, we're pushing a high pace, we're getting tired. And it's like, I hope I can push when I'm tired, because it's like, this is what I want to do. But I think just knowing, like, I definitely found out about like, you don't have to start off being good at something if you just like put attention on that and like really focus on it, and then don't deter, and you like tell excuses to kind of like kick rocks and just keep showing up. Like, you can get a lot of things done and you can make a lot of improvements. And I try to carry that into like other things, like when I'm, because I run like strength programs, I do like nutrition, like a nutrition business. And, that was like a big learning curve. But I kind of took what I got out of like from Muay Thai and now from jiu-jitsu is like, I wasn't good. I just kept showing up and kept putting the work in and staying consistent. And now I've won a bunch of Muay Thai fights, but now it's like, okay, now these things that I wanted to learn, even when I like would rather go out or rather play games or rather do this or that, like I just stuck to learning these things, and now I know what I'm talking about. So it's like, if you just ignore excuses and like just decide to be consistent with whatever it is, it's like you will build skill, and you will build, what people call as like talent, but it's most of the time is skill. Everybody has like a glass ceiling. Like, I'm not going to spend the next 10 years doing basketball every day and then start D'ing up LeBron. Like, it's just not happening. But you can maximize your potential with just being consistent and sticking to it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that is definitely something you can apply to everything, because it's not black and white. You can't get discouraged by how far you have to go. It's just one step at a time, chipping away at it. And martial arts especially will definitely like humble you and teach you that it's a game of inches. Especially when you're competing, you learn that pretty quickly, right? It's like That last 10%, I always say, is what it takes to really win, because anyone can do the rest of it. It's just learning how to mentally push or going for the kill or string it all together, whatever it is, that's that last 10% that makes it hard. Do you have a specific fighter that made you want to fight by watching them, or that you had admired throughout your career?
I mean, I definitely, so like, I think I just got into fighting just watching it in general, being like, this is awesome. Um, Interestingly enough, since I spent so much time striking, I think my first favorite fighter was Matt Hughes. It was just the dominance of his performances. He was like, even when he retired, he was on a bit of a skid, but he retired at like 48-9, something like really crazy. He was just like a dude that, I remember watching his documentary when he first started fighting. He was fighting like 6, 7, 8 times a year, just like mowing through people and being like super active. So I think maybe that part of it is kind of like molded me a little bit, where I'm kind of like always eyeing up the next time that I want to compete. Yeah, he was big. Again, another wrestler. Like, I was a big Chael Sonnen fan, but again, it was just somebody who's willing to just push the pace and put his head in your chest and grind from the first bell to the last bell. And it's like, I might be tired, but I know that means you're tired too. So let's just both sprint at the wall and see who hits it first. And I bet it's not me. So that kind of mentality I really like. And then style-wise, I've been really big the last couple of years on like Max Holloway, on Israel Adesanya. Adesanya especially, just because I think the way that he moves kind of like it just works the best with me. Like, some of the things I try to take from him, it's like they just click like that. Whereas, like, again, I try to steal some things from like Max Holloway, from Jose Aldo, and it's like they work, but it feels like maybe I'm impersonating somebody. Whereas when I try a little bit more of like the Adesanya stuff, it just kind of is like, oh, that's who I am, and it just like, it doesn't take a lot of effort with his stuff in particular, for whatever reason that is.
Fun. It's like taking little pieces from here and there, and you can kind of like build your own fighter, and just finding what works with your body too. You can't, not every style works for everyone, I'm not super athletic, so I can't really do a lot of explosive movements, but I find ways around it,
Well, it's the thing, you got to play the hands you got.
Exactly. So what do you think about the state of the MMA landscape right now? I think it's kind of an exciting time, because I feel like more promotions seem to be kind of tossing out different elements that are exciting and drawing a little more attention. But how do you feel about the way things are going?
I think it's great. I know, like, well, one, I think, like, obviously COVID sucked and it was terrible, but for the sport, it was great, because the UFC was the first thing to come back. And from like, I mean, I think they started back up like middle of May, and from like middle of May to probably, it was like August, September, maybe October, they were like the only show in town. So I feel like just the familiarity that people have with it, just across the board on average since then, I feel like has skyrocketed. I think it's become like less of a niche and more mainstream. And then there's like, some of the gimmicky things outside of like the UFC and Bellator and stuff, which like a lot of people hate on, but I think like attention's attention, like Triller, like bare knuckle boxing, like that triad show that was on like a couple days, like last weekend with the triangle. Like, it's a weird thing. I'm not going to do it, but people are talking about it. And again, it's like, people see Mike Perry and I think that he won. So they're like, oh, who's this cat? And then they look, oh, he was really good. Who beat him? Oh, this guy? All right, let me go check him out. And then that's their gateway into watching MMA if they weren't already. They showed up watching for a freak show, and they just kind of got like rolled into the whole sport, and they start finding out about guys like Jeff Neal and like Bonzanibio and like other guys that maybe Mike Perry's fought that they wouldn't have known otherwise. And now they're looking forward to Neil's next fight and to this guy's next fight because they want to see the guy that beat the guy that they just watched and thought was like a monster, you know? So I think when it comes to like making the sport more popular, which means more money for everybody and just means like a more secure future, I think like attention is attention, and that's good. If, you know, if the Paul brothers are making their money and they don't mind getting shit on half the time by people and they're happy with their life, then like, cool, you know, however many million people tuned in to watch it. So it's apparently like the market never lies, you know, if money's being spent, then it's like, it's good enough, whether or not, you know, me or anybody else thinks it's like a gimmick or a game show.
Yeah. You know, I try not to get too, I think I asked Hunter, the journalist I interviewed, about that. Like, is it worth the price of admission, you know, for like the purist? Is it worth having all those extra fans that aren't necessarily educated on the sport? And he had the same answer. He said, yeah. And I agree. Like, the more people that are interested in it, the more people will become educated about it inherently. But, and hopefully more money for everyone. That's the goal. But it is a little niche, small world, and I always say there's like such a huge disconnect between like the audience and the athletes. But hopefully the more, like, that's why I like doing this too, is the more you show the people behind the fighters and what it takes to actually do what they do for a living, I think people will have a little more empathy, and I think it makes it more interesting. I love like any road to the octagon, embedded, anatomy of a fighter, all those things. I think it makes people want to watch you more the more they know about you.
Yeah. I think like, you know, you get your 30-second clip of like, you know, after a fist fight what somebody has to say, and it's maybe not the most coherent or like intelligent thing. Or like, you know, even like Joe Rogan's podcast, like there's been fighters that like I was like, oh, I don't really like them. And then, but, you know, I'll watch the podcast, and then you listen to somebody talk and like be themselves for 3 hours, and you're like, they're not that bad. That's like, you know, just a little snippet that I got of them I thought was annoying, but like kind of fly on the wall, watch them hang out with somebody and be themselves for 3 hours is like just a better window into who they are. And you're just like, you know, no, almost anybody is like not as bad as, you know, maybe initially feel they are when you're just getting like a short clip of them.
Well, there's more to it. I think it's natural for you to just categorize like, I like them, I don't like them, you know?
Yeah.
And they're either, not everyone's personality is super exciting or star material.
Right.
But, I guess on that topic though, how do you feel about the entertainment aspect of the business? Do you feel pressure to be entertaining as a personality to sell yourself, or do you just kind of do you and hope for the best?
So I mean, I definitely that's like one of the cool things that my coach kind of told me about, kind of instilled early on, was like pushing tickets, doing this, doing that. It was really mostly just the tickets, like building a brand type of thing. So I definitely understand that it's an important part. I mean, fortunately for me, it doesn't feel like too forced. Again, I think like when I first started doing it, it was like you feel kind of like cringy, like posting stuff and be like, hey, come spend your time and money to watch me do a thing that I like doing. You know, it's like, it feels, again, like a little just cringy, but also it's like when you've been doing enough and you're good and the way you fight is entertaining, and like, you're not like, you know, personality, you either click with some people or you don't, but like, when you like to go entertain, it's like you're providing a service almost. You know, it's like people want to come see. I'm not forcing anybody to come. I don't feel like I have to like heckle people to come to my fights. It's like they know that I'm going to be chucking head kicks and overhands and trying to get some, you know, spoiler alert, trying to get some takedowns, trying to like, you know, do good things and be exciting about it. I think it's just easy for people to get behind that. And then, you know, there's definitely like, you could try to be more entertaining. And I think there's like, again, just like an aura that you can give off, just kind of like a body language you can have, that will, and a fight style, you know, if it fits you, to be more exciting. You can also go super like Colby Covington route, which again is like definitely forced. And it's like, yeah, but I get to keep my job and make a bunch of money, even though half the people don't really like me, you know, and that's for each individual person to feel okay with or not okay with, I guess. But, you know, I understand that it's like anything else. You get paid based off of the attention that you bring. So go do something that brings attention and you'll get the financial side of it that you want. You know, not saying anything, not doing anything, and hoping to like slowly chip your way up the top, I feel like has like a merit to it. It's just tough. You know, you look at a guy like Francisco Trinaldo, who's on like a 9-fight win streak in the lightweight division, beating like, he beat Paul Felder. He beat like, I forget who else, but he beat like some legit top 5, top 10 guys and never got a title shot because nobody cared about him. You know? So it's like, yeah. Like Leon Edwards, who's got to beat, but if he were to win the title, it's like, okay, well, I already beat guys 1 through 9. So who's challenging me for my title now? You know, it's like, go in, take tough fights, make your money, have fun, you know, do whatever your personality is, but understand that like opportunity comes with, you know, people paying attention to you.
Yeah. I mean, it's in your best interest, you know, for people to want to see you. So
yeah,
it's part of it. That's what makes it special and different than any sport, you know. And I mean, even at a major gym I used to be at, the main coach would always tell the fighters coming up, like, find your niche, figure out social media, get your Instagram going. This is like when Instagram was new, but, you know, get your Instagram going, and that's part of it. You know, the sponsors want to see that. So teaching them how to fight, but also like everything that comes along with it at a high level, you have to be able to do, whether it's like identifying with your heritage, you know, are you Jamaican, and kind of go in that direction because people really get behind it. And it's part of the business, you know. It sometimes weighs more than it should, but it, like I said, it's your best interest to be entertaining. So one final question, what do you see for yourself coming up this next couple years?
Well, I mean, I really want to start picking up the pace competition-wise.
Yeah.
You know, like, obviously 2020, nobody really fought. It's like you got in early, you got in late in the year, and, you know, you maybe got a couple fights. So I didn't care too much that I only fought once that year. But now for me being December and it's only my second fight of the year is like torturous.
Yeah.
Because like I had for 6 years had averaged 5 fights a year throughout that time.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I realized this recently and had a conversation with my coach. Was like, in 2019, between February and May, I fought 5 times, and then I've only fought 4 times since then. Yeah. And it's like, I just don't like this sitting around pace. You know, I feel like I fight better. I feel like life's just better when I get to like be a shark and just be on the hunt for stuff. Yeah. And again, COVID was the first time since I started fighting in 2013 that I didn't have a day or like a general area of where I was looking to go. So CFFC is doing a bunch of shows next year. I mean, I'm trying to fight 4 times, 5 times next year and like just keep this ball rolling. And hopefully by the end of the year or like beginning of 2023, start being looked at by like major promotions, you know. Ideally, you know, as you guys found out, like I think the money's in Bellator, to especially, you know, when you start off, because you get your sponsors, they have like Viacom money, they have all that stuff, you know, and then, you know, if I get to the UFC after that, or if it's PFL, then Bellator, like whatever it is, I'm really looking to get super busy next year and like end of the year, early 2023, start getting looked at big promotions. And then
Yeah.
just like my whole thing has been like, all I want to figure out is how good I can get. And then fights are a test of that. So you go get as good as you can in between fights, go test it out in competition, come back, learn your lessons, whether you win or lose. That's another thing. It's not win or learn. You could learn on a win too.
Yeah.
But like just trying to stack those wins, get the information, keep building up, and then just do as much as I can. I'm looking at like another maybe like 6-7 years. So just really wringing the towel out as much as I can in that time.
Well, that's exciting. It's really great that you have a relationship with the CFFC, and I mean, a lot of the guys don't understand how beneficial that is. It's such a great regional promotion.
Yeah.
Great production, and you know, their deal with Fight Pass definitely gives you some more eyes where you need to be seen. So it's definitely big for you. I'm excited to see what's coming, and maybe this time off is good though. You know, you've had some time to develop more.
Yeah.
Now you can just pop off a bunch of fights.
Yeah, I feel good about it. It's like, you know, I lost my last fight in April, and I just got like out wrestled by the kid. I literally my fight ended at 9 p.m. and I showed up to the 7:30 a.m. practice the next day because I was not even minorly bothered.
Mm-hmm.
And just watching that back like a couple weeks ago, that kid held me down for a total of like 7 minutes, and I'm looking back now, I'm like, bro, that kid doesn't hold me down for more than 30 seconds at a clip now, because just like there has been a lot of leveling up, and I'm fortunate for that. And yeah, now I feel like it's like, okay, I kind of closed that gap that I needed to close, and there's still work to do, but now let's unleash and let these folks know like what the real deal is.
Awesome. I mean, I love watching you fight. You're super talented, and we can see you next in a couple weeks.
Yes, 12 days from now. I don't know when this is going to get posted, but December 17th, CFFC 104 live at the Hard Rock in Atlantic City on UFC Fight Pass as well. So if you didn't get your ticket, you screwed up. That's cool. It'll be on Fight Pass, and you can tune in, grab some popcorn, grab your family members, gather on the TV, and watch us go to work.
There you go. Sell it. I'd love to go. Corey and I are trying to get out to AC one of these days, but we're short on the babysitters, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough, but hopefully one day.
Eventually, yeah. I mean, I like going to AC. The Hard Rock's a great venue as well. So best of luck. Thank you so much for coming on. Again, this
Thank you.
Special 40th episode. So I'm excited. There's a few more coming this year, and we will talk to you soon, Frank.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thank you so much for having me on. Best luck with Corey too, and with the fam and all that stuff, and hopefully I catch you guys soon.
Thanks again, Frank, for taking the time to come on the show in the middle of fight camp. I know you're down to the wire, so we appreciate it. And you can watch Frank on Fight Pass for CFFC's next fight card coming up. And for everyone else, you can follow us on Instagram at The First Fight to stay tuned for our upcoming episodes. We're going to finish out the year strong, and we're going to start the new year with some new fun interviews in store. Thanks again for listening.